I think the matchups for Egghead will be Luffy versus Saturn and Zoro and Sanji versus Kizaru. Zoro has some personal beef to settle with Kizaru. So you think that Saturn is going to be the big boss battle of Egghead Island? That said, that's kind of wow. I mean, really, are we taking down an Elder Star here? We might be. But I don't know, the 4 remaining Elder Stars just doesn't quite have the same ring to it name-wise. What I am seeing as increasingly possible is this being a good opportunity to defeat our first Admiral and really show them Marines that the Straw Hats are pretty serious business. I don't mind Sanji versus Kizaru though. I think that's a very natural matchup. Give Sanji some of the light tech plus his Haki plus genetic enhancements and it becomes a good old kickfest. Even with Haki though, Zoro seems like a bad matchup for Kizaru. No, did I say that the wrong way? Kizaru seems like a bad matchup for Zoro. Good Kizaru, not good Zoro. Although I'd honestly be much more excited to see a straight up Luffy versus Kizaru one-on-one. I think it's always up to the captain to break new ground, such as when Luffy was the first to defeat a commander and then Sanji and Zoro followed. Plus Luffy and Kizaru are both worth 3 billion berries at the moment, so you could even give it a cool name like the 6 billion berry showdown. First Kid, then Law, and now Garp. Oda really likes getting rid of these 3 billion berry men during the Egghead arc. Makes me wonder who will be next. Luffy, Kizaru? That is a very good point. Everyone who has been beaten in this arc so far has had a 3 billion berry bounty, which means that the pirate economy has seen a potential 9 billion berries of stimulus injection. That is historic. Not even Big Mom and Kaido provided that because their combined bounties were 8,999,000,000 berries, and also their bounties were never claimed. And to be fair, I highly doubt that Kid, Law, or even Garp will be claimed either. I swear, the only bounty we've ever seen claimed in this series was that old man who allegedly killed T-Bone. But I do like the theme of what's happening here. We know that Kizaru is worth 3 crowns, aka 3 billion berries, and Luffy is our final 3 billion berry worst generation member standing. So one of them going down would be very numerically satisfying. First up though, some serious business. In fact, this is what allows me to keep making videos. This video is sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends, and I would like to thank them from the bottom of my heart. Because in all honesty, their support is what allows me to keep the lights on in the office, pay my amazing channel artists and editors, and allows me to focus on bringing you the best fictional pirate content possible. I know that Raid gets memed on a lot, but it's a legitimately good game. Stunning graphics, immersive gameplay, with some of the coolest, craziest characters, and in-depth lore that really hits me right in the sweet spot. In fact, that lore is so in-depth that Raid even have their own animated series, Call of the Arbiter, on their official YouTube channel. And the game itself never gets boring because there are consistent updates. In fact, they just added a brand new boss, Akumori, the Phantom Shogun, who seems to adorn his undead steed with an assortment of severed heads. Look, I'm not going to claim to understand fashion, but what I do know is that you playing Raid directly supports this channel, specifically by using my link in the description or by scanning the QR code right here, and new players will even get a free starter pack featuring this cool in-game loot. If you've been on the fence about Raid, give it a go. It's fun, it's free, it's what's another F word? It's fantastically helpful in allowing us to bring you the best fictional pirate content possible. So go download Raid, and now here's more of that sweet fictional pirate content. I'm really curious to see how will the world government pass through the barrier. Will York let them in? Does she even know they are coming? I don't think it's in York's best interest to let them in. Remembering that the world government have a mandate to kill all of the Vegapunks, and York is part of the all of the Vegapunks. Besides, York has a different plan, one which may involve lowering the barrier, but that may be to sneak away with the Blackbeard pirates instead. However, what this does do is shift the dynamic with CP0. If they know that there's a fleet of Marines out there, then I imagine their goal would become to lower the barrier, especially if they received an order directly from a certain Saint Saturn. Because what we have here is a siege, and sieges generally end when the walls are breached, or when the people outside the walls just decide to F off and go home. So the moment that barrier comes down, the Marines will swiftly take command. And I think that's the moment where we may need to decide whether or not Egghead Island will be added to the list of destroyed Vegapunk labs. You should leave the old man. What if that old man is Vegapunk? Alright, so this is referring to Garp's lesson, which is very interesting. Egghead and Hachinosu are both part of the same arc, and I could see Garp's lesson tying into the Vegapunk situation as well, especially since both of them, according to the narrator, have been declared missing. It's also not lost on me that in the space of 24 hours, this world has lost 2 of its most beloved figures. The hero of justice, Garp, and the man who made everyone's lives better, Vegapunk. If I'm a general citizen of the One Piece world, then I'm starting to worry that the apocalypse is incoming. And if the worst does happen, then the new cycle might become Straw Hat Luffy kills Vegapunk during attack that left Marines vulnerable, thus leading to the death of Garp the hero as well. Overnight, Luffy would become the most hated figure in the world. Seraphim Garp. Don't know how, but lock it in. Alright, just locking it in animation for you now. There we go. And okay, I think I know how. But it requires a very precariously balanced game of headcanon Jenga. Let's say that York has plans to align with the Blackbeard pirates, and that's why they're at Egghead, to pick her up. Fantastic. So York gets to Hachinosu, sees Garp, and goes, mate, is that the strongest marine to have ever lived? What if we made one of those, but for us? And then using excessive resources, perhaps resources gained from cashing in the real Garp, York is able to produce another Seraphim, or indeed series of Seraphim. Except maybe this time they've got demon wings instead of fluffy angel wings. But this would be horrifying because that then brings another Prime Garp into the world. And this is not a hero, this is Garp the villain. Saw a theory a while back that Blackbeard wants Garp's body to transfer Rock's soul into. That's why they wanted Gecko Moria and his fruit. Alright, that's pretty wild. For this to work, you'd need Big Mom's fruit though, right? Not Moria's? Unless you somehow manage to preserve Rox's shadow. Which actually, if Rox is still alive, then so is the shadow. Not that shadows are alive. Well, actually they are in One Piece, but only sometimes. And you know what? Big question. Because even if you're not alive, your body will still cast a shadow. Could Moria then take that shadow, insert it into a corpse, and still have the same effect? So you take the dead corpse of Zebek, if he is indeed dead. And I imagine that you wouldn't even need the whole thing. Let's say we found his proximal phalanx, and with the shadow cast from said Bonefoot, we extract the essence of Zebek, and then we plonk him into Garp. Job done. Coby's motto is honest justice. Truly a kingly ambition. Yeah, I really like that actually. So many different Marines have their own perspective on justice according to their own individual criteria. Thorough justice, lazy justice, unclear justice. But then here comes Coby and he's all like, guys, can we just stop the bullshit and just be honest with ourselves here? Do you think this is Coby's first time using Conqueror's Haki? Alright, before answering that, we need to do a bit of a dive back into Haki, because it's still in question as to whether or not he actually was using it. Conqueror's Haki, that is. He was definitely using Haki, but was it Conqueror's? And I personally think he was, however, there are assorted things to consider. So Black Lightning is a trademark feature of Conqueror's Haki users, and almost every instance we see of it in the series involves a confirmed Conqueror's Haki user, even if they're not consciously activating it. However, there are some exceptions. For example, the end of Jinbei vs. Who's Who featured a Black Lightning effect, as did the vassal slicing Kaido with Paradise Totsuka. To the best of our knowledge, no one involved in those clashes was a Conqueror's Haki user. I mean, I guess Kaido was. So maybe he was leaking Conqueror's Haki from his own body, but that's a stretch. Even with that in mind though, these situations are quite rare, and the common visual language does imply that Black Lightning equals Conqueror, especially recently. In the last video, I said that Luffy using advanced armament never made Black Lightning, and the effect only began when he started imbuing Conqueror's Haki. And I'd also like to add that the same is true for Zoro. Nothing Black Lightning happened until his Conqueror's Haki was unlocked. Stepping back an arc though, Luffy is shown with Black Lightning fighting against Katakuri, as is Katakuri by the way, but both of them are confirmed Conqueror's Haki users, so that tells us absolutely nothing. It could have just been a subconscious imbuement. This is the sort of thing that will probably need an SBS to clarify. And I guess, no, it's not 100% confirmed, but look, come on guys, we know how stories go. Coby almost certainly has it. And he's gonna need it if he's gonna become the new hero guy of the Marines. Coby got that Rock Lee mindset, and this felt like the Marine version of the Monster Trio. So I was thinking the exact same thing, but in a different way. Watching Coby, Helmeppo, and Gru, I could not help but think of a future where they become the three admirals. I don't know if it'll happen without a time skip, but I am a big champion of Admiral Helmeppo specifically. Or perhaps Coby will become the fleet admiral and we'll add another younger one in, like say Hibari. Maybe not Hibari. Definitely seems like the Sakura of the group. She has a long way to go. I wonder what Luffy's reaction to Garp's MIA status will be if and when he finds out. I think he will find out, but it's really hard to say. The two have such a weird relationship. Luffy both loves and is terrified of Garp. In fact, Garp is pretty much the only person in this world who Luffy has ever been afraid of fighting, apart from that one time with Big Mom in Udon Prison. But Luffy even ordered his crew not to fight Garp on Water 7, which is so unimaginable to think of Luffy doing with anyone else. Even when it comes to emperors, Luffy's philosophy is to punch first and think later, and even then that's a maybe. The thinking part of that is not guaranteed. So in Luffy's mind, Garp is probably the strongest person he knows, so it might send a legitimate chill down his otherwise rather rubbery spine to hear that Garp has been defeated. It's hard to see him caring as much or even more about Garp than Ace though. When Luffy first found out that Ace was in trouble on Thriller Bark, he just shrugged it off and went, yeah, Ace is having his own adventure, it's probably fun. I'm a bit jealous actually. However, now Blackbeard is effectively responsible for both Ace and Garp, really setting up Luffy for an angry Blackbeard confrontation, which might be bad for Luffy, because Blackbeard enrages Luffy like no one else is capable of. And just putting this out there, it's going to be pretty difficult difficult to be the joy boy when you're overcome by anger. So maybe Blackbeard's very existence is a counter to Luffy's joy boyishness. Kuzan's ice sword went straight through the wound that Shiryu made, stopped the bleeding, and helped Garp survive. That's a great point. It's hard to tell from the panel we have in the manga, but it does look like Kuzan's ice pierced through the hole that Shiryu had made. Sort of like drilling a pilot hole before the real hole to make it easier. One thing I will say for the Blackbeard pirates is that they have fantastic teamwork. They're not obsessed with stupid concepts like their honor and honesty and such. And so every fight with them is a group affair. They're a genuinely good team, perhaps even the best team in the series. And so we have two options. Shiryu's hole was used by Kuzan as an opening to get his fruit powers past Garp's insane natural/haki based defenses. Secondly, it's exactly what the commenter said. Kuzan is rather brutally saving Garp from bleeding out. Or thirdly, and I know I said there was only two options, but thirdly, it's both. I also saw someone say that Kuzan's face is frozen on the last page to hide his tears, which is an idea that I really like. Why did Aokiji in Marineford say he owes Garp one when he was talking about to kill Luffy? Maybe he will do something. So this has been one of those lingering questions for well over a decade now. In chapter 566, Kuzan is about to kill Luffy but says, "I owe your grandfather a great debt, but you leave me no choice. You chose the path of death yourself." But then Mako did a bit of a bird kick and stopped Kuzan from killing Luffy, which I think is fascinating to look at in retrospect. One, because it shows that Kuzan isn't a flat-out good guy. Even if the Blackbeard thing is but a clever ruse for some sort of master plan, Kuzan was going to straight up kill murder Luffy right here, which is certainly not the Garp thing to do. What you're supposed to do is kill the old man, not the child. And it's also worth considering what that debt is. Is it just the decades of training and mentorship, or is it something perhaps even more profound? And if so, what happened to turn Kuzan away from the path of Garp? Or is Kuzan repaying that debt as we speak? Because in a way, Kuzan did exactly what Garp wanted on Hachinosu. He applied the lesson and captured the old man, whilst the young future havers escaped. Whether or not he meant to do that is another matter. And looking back on Ohara, Kuzan is applying Garp's lesson with Robin. Because even if it's saving one child, that is a massive investment in the future. I still don't like Coby. Don't forget he's in Sword. He'll probably end up Luffy's biggest loss because of writing. Well, to be fair, the only reason why anything happens in the series is because of writing. I love Coby though, and I'm still very keen on the idea that one of, if not the final fight in the series, could be Pirate King Luffy versus Fleet Admiral Coby. Give it a real bookend because Coby was the very first person that Luffy met on his journey. And thinking about this fictional pirate comic realistically, that's probably the only way that Coby will come to equal and or surpass Garp, because Garp has that whole Pirate King rivalry legacy. That or my dreams will come true and Buggy will become the Pirate King and serve as Coby's main pain for his tenure as hero of the Marines. Also, thanks again to Raid. They didn't ask me to put anything at the end of this video, but I'm doing it anyway, because I really appreciate their consistent support of the channel, giving me the ability to bring you more fictional pirate goodness. So please do try the game for yourself through my link in the description.